At this point, if you've still been under the impression that Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis was going to be something of a remake that is in line with the original game, then allow me to make it clear that this is a gacha game through and through. Hi, my name is Dan Faustino, and I've just played some of Ever Crisis, and I'm here to give some first impressions of the game, including gameplay, as well as the new First Soldier story. And also this?
Senpai, Yoroshiku!
First off, the footage you're going to see is probably a bit choppy, and that's because I recorded it myself. Whether it's because I'm sporting a Samsung Galaxy S10e, which is 4 years old at this point, or that my graphics card on my PC is in state of the art, or whether I'm just not optimizing the use of the recording software, I haven't quite yet determined yet. But it's not reflective of how the game actually runs on my phone while I'm not recording footage. In fact, the game runs fine on ultra high settings with some dips here and there, as well as some delays with loading graphical assets, especially on the menus, which is hard to say if that's actually due to my phone's hardware or the fact that it's pulling data using Wi-Fi, so better hardware might not even help with that? I don't know. I can never tell with these mobile games. Either way, the fact that the game is perfectly playable on a phone that can't update past Android 12, which is now 2 versions behind by the way, is a win in my book. That's not to say I didn't encounter some technical issues though. When I first started playing, I couldn't actually make draws. The game would straight up crash on me every time I did that, and to make matters worse, I lost whatever crystals, which is the in-game currency, I used to make the draw, but with none of the items obtained. And mind you, this happened while I was not recording. After logging in the second day, it worked fine and there were some updates that I downloaded, so it's possible that the updates fixed the issue. As I said before, this is a gacha game, which comes with all the hallmarks of a mobile gacha game. You've got stamina, in-game currency, paid currency, a randomized drawing system, costumes, and a behemoth ton of convoluted mechanics that will likely overwhelm you when you first start playing the game. It essentially boils down to Skinner box mechanics to entice you to play the game daily, with login bonuses, daily and weekly missions as incentives. So yeah, in other words, it's a gacha game if you've ever played one. The battle mechanics actually aren't terrible. It uses an active time battle system that plays most like Final Fantasy XIII. Also, you should click the like button on this video. Just saying. So anyways, it's like Final Fantasy XIII where you only control one character at a time, with your allies being controlled with AI. However, you can switch to your other party members. You essentially have multiple ATB segments, and certain commands require a specific amount of segments to be filled in order to use them. In the amount of time I played the game, it seems to have a good amount of depth to it. I started to get the hang of appropriately timing between offensive mode and defensive mode, as well as prioritizing certain commands when an enemy is vulnerable to being interrupted with a big attack, and then unleashing all my character's limit breaks at once, which will increase the damage multiplier, maximizing the damage output. There is an auto mode that you can toggle on mid-combat, but I opted not to use it as I wanted to see how the mechanics work myself. We'll see how it holds up long term and whether or not it just turns into an auto battler like some other mobile games. There's a variety of ways to upgrade your characters as well. As expected, you can equip your characters with weapons, armor, and materia, all of which can be upgraded individually. I can't say I've wrapped my head around all of it yet, as some of the features I have yet to unlock still, such as the materia upgrade system and summons. I'm not a huge fan of gacha games myself, but the primary reason I was drawn to this game is because of the story, and specifically the new content like the First Soldier story, which I would guess is the reason most of you are interested in the game too, if we're being perfectly honest with ourselves, right? First off, you can't just jump into the First Soldier content right away. They force you to alternate between the various content. You'll start out playing content from the original Final Fantasy VII story, and then once you've gotten far enough, it will then unlock a portion of the Crisis Core story, and then once you've gotten to a certain point there, you'll unlock the First Soldier story. I have been able to play content in all 3 of the different stories that are available at launch, but the only one that I have completed the content available at launch in is Crisis Core as of the making of this video. It's also important to know that when you play the story of Final Fantasy VII in Crisis Core, that you're not getting the whole story. They're essentially truncated versions of the original story separated into bite-sized missions that take you through most of the important story moments from those games. It's basically a very elaborate interactive Cliff Notes versions of the stories. What I found weird when I first started the game was that the pre-rendered cutscenes, most of which we've already seen in their respective games, doesn't have English voice acting. They play the Japanese voices with English subs instead, which, if you consider yourself a cool cactar, you should subscribe to this channel. Anyways, it makes a bit of sense as to why, when I started playing the First Soldier content, as the pre-rendered cutscene is totally new, and they probably have no intention of paying money to hire an English cast for one scene with only a few lines. So anyways, in First Soldier, you play as Jack Garland.
Looks like chaos has been waiting for us.
I mean, Glenn Lodbrok, who's facing off against Sephiroth in a forest in the middle of the night, illuminated by fire, which I would assume was caused by Sephiroth. Then it cuts to a younger version of Glenn, or, I'm sorry, we don't know his name is Glenn yet, but then it cuts to a younger version of the same guy riding in a chopper about 5 seconds later, whose name just so happens to be Glenn. I'll let you decide for yourself if it's the same person. When the scene cuts to Glenn, he's clenching his fist in the air saying, "You're asking for it." Who could he be referring to? I wonder. He's clearly jealous of someone. Things take a turn for the worse shortly after, as there happen to be hostiles attacking them. But first, you see this? There's a picture of Stamp as a beagle here, and not as a terrier. I think this might be important. Anyways, Team Glenn goes to check on the pilot, only to find that the cockpit is missing, of which they describe as a plane? But they're clearly in a chopper. Anyway, they end up crash landing on an island known as Rodore Archipelago. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Am I pronouncing that right? And almost immediately upon crash landing, the one thing that didn't get wrecked are backup suits. Because the Shinra outfits they were wearing are too generic. And you can't go around looking like NPCs now, can you?
Oh, yes.
It also turns out that Glenn and his Mark's queen, named Lucia, his other squad mate, landed in close proximity, but their other squad member, Matt, is missing. Shortly, Lucia reveals to us that they're part of a special Shinra project known as Project Zero, and their class is Soldier P0 class. Their saying is, 0 loss when we die, and 0 debt owed or to claim. I don't know about you guys, but I think this might be foreshadowing that they're going to die at the end. Just taking a wild stab. Afterwards, some monsters attack and battle ensues, and remember how I said the voices were in Japanese? Well, when I started the battle, I heard Glenn say, "Senpai Yoroshiku!"
Senpai Yoroshiku!
Look, I may not be fluent in Japanese, but Yoroshiku is like a greeting word, and senpai is like superior, mentor, senior. I don't think there's a good way to translate that word, but you'll probably know what that means. So, did he just greet the monsters as senpai? Is he calling the monsters senpai? Am I getting this right? If so, Glenn is my new favorite character. So shortly after, they end up meeting up with their other squad mate, Matt Windsor. I only played a little bit of the story so far, and I have to say I'm actually enjoying it. Despite some of the dialogue being a bit corny, they've done a good job in just a short bit of establishing that these squad mates have a history together, and I'm liking their dynamics so far. I didn't play a second of the actual First Soldier Battle Royale game that has already been shut down, so as far as I'm concerned, this is the first time I've seen Rodore Archipelago, as it's definitely not featured in the original game. My gut tells me it's kind of analogous to Japan in this world. I'm guessing it's an island somewhere off the coast where Wutai exists, as there's clearly some Asian aesthetics to it, And the boy that I met is dressed in attire that's definitely Asian inspired. So I guess Wutai is to mainland China as Midori is to Japan. So maybe these people fled Wutai and inhabited this island? But what do I know? I'm just speculating at this point. Either way, it's refreshing to see something new from Final Fantasy VII that we haven't seen before. And while I haven't seen young Sephiroth yet, we know that he's going to be in this story, as indicated by all of the trailers. So this story definitely has potential to act as a great supplement to the remake story. My main concern is that because this is a gacha game, I'm probably going to hit a giant paywall in order to continue with the story, so we'll see how far I can make it. But anyways, did you guys play Ever Crisis? What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.